While a lot of the focus as part of this 2015 NFL draft of the wide receiver position was on guys such as Amari Cooper, Devontae Parker, maybe Dorial Green Beckham, Jalen Strong, one wide receiver that I had my eye on all year, and one guy that I've come on here for a while now and talked about his upside and his talents is Kevin White out of West Virginia. I think a lot of people had their eyes opened to what Kevin White could bring at the NFL level at the wide receiver position at this year's scouting combine. When you see a guy this big, this strong, this physical run a legit 4.35 40, that's special. That'll make people take notice. But people should have already been taking notice of Kevin White. Here's a guy with big-time #1 NFL wide receiver size, right around 6'3", 215 pounds or so, and built really well. He has that big-time #1 wide receiver look to him. He looks the part. And he also has that strength to go along with that size. But there's so much more to Kevin White's game other than just his size. The fact that he has speed to go with that size, quickness and acceleration, the ability to get vertical consistently, the ability to stretch defenses over the top, making him a real matchup nightmare. But what you also have to like about him is his ability, unlike, let's say, an Amari Cooper, Kevin White has that ability to go up and get the ball at its highest point consistently, make those jump balls go in his favor, be able to get it at its highest point, and make those spectacular catches that are needed out of a #1 NFL wide receiver. So he has the size, he has the acceleration, quickness, and speed. He has the ability to get vertical and get the ball at its highest point and make those difficult jump ball catches that are so necessary out of a #1 wide receiver at the NFL level. But there's more to him. I think he's a guy with really, really good hands. I think he has better hands than Amari Cooper. And I really like the fact, similar to an Amari Cooper, let's say, is that Kevin White is a competitor. I think he's more fiery than Cooper, but here's a guy that is willing to go over the middle. This is a guy that is willing to mix it up. This is a guy that gives consistent effort. This is a guy that can not only make tacklers miss with his athleticism and twitching his side to side, but he can also run through them and isn't afraid to run through them. This is a wide receiver with some chutzpah, some balls, some nuts. And therefore, when I look at him, there's just so many things that just leap off the film at me when it comes to Kevin White. But I do have some questions about him. You know, when you look at Kevin White, this is a guy that's been a couple of years at the JUCO level. For all intents and purposes, he only had one real big-time year at the college level. Is he a bit of a one-year wonder? Is he a guy that had that equivalent of a college contract year, knowing that the NFL draft was coming up? He peaked when it was the most necessary in order to get himself paid. Does he have the ability to be a consistent producer, a performer at the NFL level? Or was he a bit of a flash in the pan? What also concerns me about him is the fact that he needs to improve on his route running. He is a big physical wide receiver with a lot of speed to go with it. And sometimes it can take him a little while to get going. That 4.35 speed doesn't always translate in terms of acceleration, therefore sometimes separation. And when you look at how he utilizes that 6 foot, almost 3 frame and that 215, 220 pounds, he could be a lot better at beating press coverage. That's something that he's going to need to get better at. He's going to need to get better at understanding his size and understanding how to use it in order to beat press coverage that he's going to see a lot more of at the NFL level. If he doesn't improve his route running and he doesn't get better at beating press coverage, you know, this is a guy that's always going to be a tease. This is going to be a guy that frustrates you as a player at the NFL level because you see he could be so much more, but he ultimately isn't. And what really concerns me the most about Kevin White is the fact that I saw him get taken out of games by corners that he shouldn't have. Iowa State was able to take him out of the game and make him largely non-factor, and then a 5'9" Kevin White at TCU was able to take a 6'3" Kevin White completely out of the equation. Held him like 3 catches and 30-something yards. Why? In part because Kevin White was able to get up into his face and get physical with this Kevin White. And he was able to press him and he was able to take him off of his spot. And this Kevin White from West Virginia really had trouble adjusting to that because of his lack of refined route running like an Amari Cooper has and his lack of ability at this point in time to consistently beat a press coverage like an Amari Cooper has. With that said, though, there is a lot to like about Kevin White on film. It's scary how good he is already, and it's scary to me that he could get a whole lot better. This guy had a monster season in 2014. And that's with so-so route running and so-so ability at his size to beat press coverage. What happens if he gets better in those areas? What happens as he gets more big-time experience? He has that prototype size, speed, athleticism that so many teams want and covet out of a number one wide receiver. And what I really like about him is that he is a guy that is fiery. This is a competitor, a guy that plays with a chip on his shoulder, that seems to not only want to be good, but want to be great and want to be a winner. This is something that is a likable trait, but sometimes could be a bit of a burden for him at the NFL level. But when I look at Kevin White, I've been talking about it for a while. For my money, this is the number one wide receiver prospect in this 2015 NFL draft. He's bigger than Amari Cooper. He's faster than Amari Cooper. He's a better athlete than Amari Cooper. He has a better ability to make those spectacular plays than an Amari Cooper. Flat out, I just think he's the number one wide receiver in this class, and I think he's a top 5 pick in this draft. In terms of an NFL comparison, I've seen a lot of people make that comparison to him to Julio Jones, and I get it and I understand it. But when I look at Kevin White and I look at his skill set, his combination of size, speed, athleticism, his attitude, and what he brings to the table, when I look at him as a prospect, you know who I see? I see Andre Johnson of the Houston Texans. And that's not a comparison I'm just going to throw around like candy. I take that comparison very seriously because to me, Andre Johnson is a Hall of Fame NFL wide receiver. And that's the type of upside I think Kevin White has. That's the type of ability that I think Kevin White has. I think he not only will establish himself long-term to be the best wide receiver out of this 2015 NFL draft class, I think this is a guy with the attitude, with the skill set, with the drive to become a Hall of Famer one day.